Counting down the top 10 mistakes that we see radio stations make when conducting or implementing their research. We're up to number 9. I'm with Carolyn Gilbert, president and founder of New Voodoo, and Lee Jacobs, EVP of Research Analysis. And finding number 9 is one that I know is near and dear to your hearts: research shortcuts. Now, we spent a great deal of time in our last video, finding number 10, all about auditorium tests and that flawed methodology. And we got into things like the field services and all the ways they cheat to get quota sample in, like friends and family program. So I don't think we need to beat that horse, but I know there's a couple of other things that are really that are real emotional hot buttons. And I remember one, Carolyn, when you and I used to fight as researcher and programmer, friendly fights. And that was the idea of using Rate the Music, which I never used as research, but a lot of stations do.
Right. It's not research. It's a request line on steroids, as I like to call it. These are people already engaged with the station. These are people who want to win the prize. These are people who might be likely ratings respondents, but they're in it to win it. It's also, I mean, there's so many things wrong with anything that's opt-in. Research needs to be pushed. Research needs to be random. Research needs to have discrete sample from various places where they don't know who you are, where all they're focusing on is one thing, and it's that song. Rate the Music is a great marketing tool. I will put on my other marketing hat and talk all day about the benefits of building database. But as a research tool, it ain't research, it's junk. Lee?
Well, back in the day, we even had the opportunity to take piles of Rate the Music data and put it up against the call out that we were creating back in the day. And if I recall correctly, when we lined up the popularity scores of the two samples and then, broke them into quintiles and figured, how often do they match up? And they matched up about 50% of the time. So I'm thinking about it, putting on my PD hat, like, how lucky do I feel? Am I getting this one right, or is that one the wrong one?
Ellie, I would argue there's systematic flaws with it, in that your familiarity is going to be accelerated because you're dealing with folks who are much more attuned to what you're doing day to day because you're interacting with them. And as a result, favorite scores can drive overall positive scores. And then for program directors without a lot of experience, they could start moving stuff through rotation way too quick. And what'll happen, especially with people meters, they'll get crushed.
Additionally, you've got people in there who are trying desperately to please the station, to win the new prize, to get some preference out of the station. So, you seem to be playing this one a lot. So yeah, boy, it's great, even though I actually can't stand it. I perceive that the station has some vested interest in wanting it to be popular.
And one more thing, how many record people are in your database? Understanding that I can spike my song. I'm going to say, especially in a major market, it ain't zero. Believe me, it ain't zero. And how many emails can that record guy have? Or the station across the street who has a vested interest in you playing stiffs. I know from personal experience that this can be done and is done.
The digital version of hypoing the request line.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yep. And Lee, the other point I want to make, and I think you'll, as a fellow programmer, the other thing, so there is one good thing about Rate the Music, and you touched upon it from a marketing standpoint. It's the idea that you can create a self-selecting sample, not only of people more likely to give your station inordinate amounts of time spent listening, if they're not plants, but also we know from tilling the soil for a decade and a half now, just shy of that, that it's only 1 in 5 likely to even give Nielsen consideration. And of that, it's only a third of that will listen appreciably and participate in the survey process, about 8%. And that might even be a little high, right? Because the people we're talking to are already predisposed to participating in research. So I do agree that the Rate the Music database, while flawed for using it for research, is a potential gold mine for using it to market.
Oh, sure. The concept that we really care as a radio station about what you as a listener think, And so we're inviting you to help us decide which songs to play, letting that be an opt-in program, as long as you have the discipline, quite frankly, to never, ever look at the data. Do call out underneath that, use those data, but use a rate the music type program just to build first party relationships with listeners who will be the ones who are more inclined to play contests, to register, who are statistically more likely to be the people who are also going to end up in the ...
Yep.
Sam.
And we can model those folks for lookalikes now on social media and have really effective radio marketing campaigns. We do it all the time for our clients. Okay, now at the risk of turning this video into an NC-17 for language, I mentioned the next research shortcut with a little trepidation because I know I've got two wild horses ready to pounce. Rolling samples. Now, before you pounce, just explain the difference between a rolling sample and a discrete weak sample.
Rolling sample. Rolling sample was invented a number of years ago by research companies who said, oh my God, I can't find a full sample anymore. As success rates on the phone went down and costs went up, because you pay the same per hour, per agent hour. When I started doing call out, we got 5 music completions an hour. When I left, we were down to 0.25 music completions an hour. The call center cost $23 an hour back in the day to run. You do the math. 100 sample at almost $100 a respondent. Prohibitive. So some geniuses said, I know what we'll do. We'll do half a sample and we'll take this week's sample and we'll roll it into next week's sample, and the scores will sort of level out and it'll be elegant and we can charge the same and we don't have to work as hard to find the right people. Otherwise known, what I call rolling sample is cheating. That's it. Cheating. That's what it is. Lee, you want to take this wild horse and ride it a little further?
Well, look, I've heard the argument that, well, it really smooths out the scores. And it's the nature of any rolling sample. It's going to smooth out bumps. And sometimes maybe that's desirable. If you double the size of a sample, the reliability goes up and some of the bumps come out. But it's always the question of whether that's just, the nature of the smaller sample, or are we papering over, so to speak, something that's really valuable and important about the sample. The song got wildly more popular from cycle 1 to cycle 2, recognizing that these days call-out programs tend to be like twice a month more than every week.
Yeah, there can be 15 to 25 days between the time you implement the research and the time you do the second one and the time you implement it.
Right. Yeah. So you're now making decisions based on some data that's basically about a month old.
Right.
Now, maybe the news cycle says, oh my God, Taylor Swift has another massive hit. Everybody loves this. Holy crap, this is your biggest testing song. You've got to get it in your power rotation. But since you're holding data from the last cycle 3 weeks ago, it looks pretty good.
Carolyn, it's not like we're not just talking about taking a shortcut to save money, right? Because it's not like they're giving clients a break when they do this rolling sample stuff, right?
No, they're not. They're charging twice as much for half the sample.
Right, because you're recycling half of it.
And we've come up with methodologies to do it properly, meaning full sample every single wave. And I'm charging prices that we charged in the 80s because we need to make a living, but we don't need to be greedy. And the pricing that I see from competitors for full samples is, in my view, greedy. We don't need to. This is an industry that needs to be as efficient as possible. And, price gouging, this industry to me is obscene at this point.
Well, there you have it.
Full sample, do it right. That's what we do.
The wild horses have leaped and pounced, and you have finding number 9 research shortcuts. We're just getting started, and we're going to roll out one of these each week. We'll see you for the next video in finding number 8.
New Voodoo builds digital products and conducts research and marketing campaigns for clients.
It's easy to get in touch. Drop us a line at tellmemore@newvoodoo.com.